We're going to go ahead and kick off today's AMA. As you probably notice, we don't have a few people that we normally do have. Fox is still traveling, and Beetle Dude is actually also traveling with the family at the moment. So Fox might jump in. Don't know. Beetle, I don't think we'll get. Dreamer is on a call right now that he could only schedule now, but he's hoping to wrap that up and join us, so we might get him a little bit later as well. But for the time being, you get us. And just means more questions for Hubert. So, hey. So to get started, we do have a couple things we wanted to update you on. Uh, for that, I am going to turn it over to Magnus, who I think has an entire list of things, but I also have the list, so if you forget anything, I got you.
Hey everybody. So first off, as many of you guys probably saw, Supra has been deployed on DFK chain. Just a reminder on Supra, they're an Oracle and VRF provider, and so we'll be integrating VRF into a handful of our features where randomness is the most important to start, even though of course randomness is important everywhere. And likely that will lead to more VRF integrations as we can learn other ways where we can apply that. This will allow transactions that are that typically require a start and complete transaction to be boiled down to one user submitted start transaction, and then it will be fulfilled a few blocks later by the Supra Oracle. They'll then publish those results to the chain, and then we're currently working on the integration pieces. It's a little tricky because the API and the front end have to somehow get that data from from the chain once it's been submitted, which is a little different than the current setup. But yep, making some progress there, and very excited to be partnered with Supra on that particular piece. And in other news, there was a bug with power-ups. So some of you may not have even noticed this bug, and those are being kind of repaired behind the scenes with some of the on-chain data. That there are a few cases where some were able to allocate more heroes to that power-up than the tier that they signed up for would typically allow. So there was a small number, maybe like 40 people that basically experienced that bug. So in the process of repairing that, you may have to reallocate some of your heroes if they were kicked off of that power up as part of the bug fix. But yep. And just to confirm, those are of course the types of power ups that allow you to assign heroes to them. Bolin, I think that's everything that was on my list. If there's anything else, let me know.
I do have potentially two other things for you, but before that, I actually wanted to follow up on the Supra comment. Where do we anticipate seeing that applied first in game?
Yeah, so currently I'm working on pet hatching because it was the simplest to integrate. And so we may release that kind of piecemeal, or we may wait until the other ones are done. The other ones are going to be both types of summoning, so standard summoning and dark summoning, as well as meditation circle. And so I'm very excited about the UX improvements there. So you just have to submit one transaction instead of the two, and having to wait a little bit in between. So. Yeah, those would be the first 3 or 4, and then we may have some others in the future.
Very nice. Thank you. Also wanted to touch on standard distribution of Crystal and Jade.
Right. Thanks for that reminder. Yeah. So we've updated the standard distribution on chain now. After the decision was made last week, I don't have the numbers offhand, but those have been updated, so you can see that new split being applied as of about midday yesterday, I believe.
Thank you, sir. Those are 25% burn, 15% jeweler, 30% quest fund, and 30% dev fund. Is the new breakdown, which I believe Dr. Zipper has already pushed that live in the docs, but if not, we will do so right after this. Oh, he just did. Haha. Thank you, Dr. Zipper. So that is live in the docs as well for reference. And then the last thing, actually not the last, the next to last, but the last one is me. But the Bazaar, Magnus, Hubert, both, I guess, either. Any updates that we want to give on that front?
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in on that. Yeah, so we are getting very, very close on that. We keep finding like little small bugs and a couple things that just needed to be resolved before we would consider it ready for release. But just wrapping all those up at the moment, and we're still hopeful that nothing else will come up at this point. I think we've gone through it the pretty like the finest of teeth combs at this point. So feeling pretty good. It's working really well, and yeah, excited to get that out for you guys.
Thank you, thank you. All I could picture there was the Spaceballs scene where Dark Helmet tells him to comb the desert. All right, and then one last update before we go into questions. If you have not seen already, it's because you weren't paying attention, but that's okay. We did announce today our partnership with SwipeLux. SwipeLux is a fiat to crypto on-ramp provider. So we're really excited about that partnership. We'll have that integration coming in-game in the coming weeks, but very much excited for that. That will be the first of several on-ramp announcements we anticipate making. But it's another large step in the process of smoothing out the onboarding flow and making it easy for people to access DeFi kingdoms. So super excited for that. Big shout out to SwipeLux. They have been awesome to work with so far, and I know they will continue to be awesome to work with. They will be supporting both Jewel and Crystal directly to DFK chain. There are plans to integrate them with Clayton as well down the road. But it will be that much easier for users to hop straight into DFK chain. And when you look at all of it coming together, you get social sign-on and automated wallet creation with Halliday, which if you didn't see the office hours with Styx intern with Halliday last night, you should check that out also. So you have social sign-in and automated wallet creation, and then you have on-ramp. We're also working on in-game tutorials. So really just changing that entire onboarding flow to be a lot easier and a lot more user-friendly for folks who are interested in checking us out. So very much excited for all of that. SwipeLux, like I said, has been great so far, and looking forward to continuing that relationship. All right. And with that, let's do some questions. So, we have a question for the second best dad. So this question is for a sort of director that might have made the creative decisions, trying to specifically force second best dad into an AMA, which I'm very excited about. So, looking for a little insight into what heroes are wielding which weapons. And did the gameplay affect these decisions, or is it a little more arbitrary at the moment? Also requested to tell us anything you want, regardless of what Hubert has told you not to say.
Oh, my favorite. Yeah, nothing that no decisions we're making at this point in the game are arbitrary. Generally, if something's been changed, I think really the only weapon that has functionally been changed is the pirate, which we moved to have the sword be the primary weapon, and then have like gun abilities where he pulls it out, so they'd be more in line with the other classes. And that was just kind of the class fantasy that went along with the attacks on that. But as for everything else, the type of weapon hasn't really changed, and we tried to build around what was currently there. The warrior has a mace now, but the warrior is also going to be able to use various types of weapons, just like many other classes. So if you don't like the weapon your hero's using, it's likely you'll be able to change that in the future. But I think that's it. Was there anything else?
Any thoughts on the pirate and the pirate's gun specifically?
I talked about that, right? The gun is for special attacks. I did talk about it, Sam. You're lying to me.
Sorry, I was also reading chat at the same time, so you might have talked.
Yeah. So the theme around the pirate is he's kind of using dirty tricks and stuff. And like, if you ever see like a movie, the pirate doesn't start with the gun. They pull it out, to turn the tides of battle. So it made more sense to have like the cutlass, and then have the dirty trick of like shooting somebody as a secondary action.
Thank you, SBD. It's been delightful having you in this AMA, and I'm hoping that there are more questions that force you into AMAs. Let's see.
Hint, hint.
Right. That is a request, community. So next question is a Hubert question. Any particular reason for the design around the timer on pet food, rather than letting them be fed at any time for a top up?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the general idea there was to kind of have like a check-in mechanic where, it's not completely automated. You do have to, take care of your pets and whatnot. It's just a little bit of, in most games, things like that are the things you got to either do or you don't, and if you don't, you kind of lose the benefit. So that was the idea. It could potentially be changed in the future to like if it's a top up idea where it still has the max but you could feed earlier. I think maybe that's something that could be done. But I guess another concern was just to like load them up on food so that they have like months of fed time kind of thing was not really a desired design approach. So yeah, I'll take that into consideration though.
Makes sense. Let's see. The next question, let's see. I'm actually going to, I guess, kick off, but others are, of course, welcome to chime in, which is basically talking about our future vision for governance and how we want it to be utilized. I mean, I'll just say this is something that we talk about pretty regularly. We want it to be pretty heavily utilized. There's kind of a line there, and the line also has a gray area of like what is up for governance decision making and what is not. Historically, the way that we have approached that is if it is like game specific, it is not up for governance because game design by committee, by governance, it will never have a game. But anything ecosystem impacting, like what pools are available in the gardens, that kind of thing, has been done via governance. Obviously, that gray area is where we see some crossover, like the RFC that we did on summoning cooldowns, where it is gameplay, but it also impacts the ecosystem and existing assets. So we kind of walk that line on that one. But that's kind of where we view the difference in governance is if it's the game design that belongs to currently Kingdom Studios because Kingdom Studios is contracted to make the game. If it's more about the ecosystem and the like external aspect, it's more governable. But beyond that, what we would like to see is get to a point to where it is easier for community members to bring forth governance proposals. Obviously, that system is not in place right now, so it's a little more of a manual process of, posting in Discord or posting on the talk site, getting support for that idea, so that we can review it and then, kind of go from there. So it is definitely a little more manual right now than how we envision it in the future. But that is where we want it to be, is where it's a lot easier for community members to bring forward proposals that they would like to see. Anybody have anything they want to add to that?
Nope, I think that was pretty well covered for me.
All right. Sweet. So next question, which actually also mentions governance, interestingly enough. So it seems like people's views are shifting on the question of the size of the hero population, but there's a debate about, more burn or more control. The question mentions potentially deciding that via governance, but also with like options that could specifically be implemented. So Hubert, you want to kick that off, I guess?
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, so like as Bolin just said, one thing that we want to avoid is like designed by committee or designed by governance. Having a vote on whether or not we should have more burn mechanics, I don't think is something that we would support doing. But I can definitely say that we have been talking about burn mechanics for heroes and whatnot. It's more a matter of just bandwidth, and if we work on hero burn mechanics, then we have to delay other things. Right now, it's we're more focused on the combat engine and getting that defined further and ready to go, so we can use it in the game. So yeah, if we went and switched gears to doing a burn mechanic instead, that would result in just a delay on everything else. So it is always a question of priorities. That is not something that we are forgetting. It is something that I can say that there's at least a little bit of background work going on some of the ideas that we have for that. As far as like another governance vote for like changing summoning in some way, either with like cost changes or cooldown timer changes, or a mixture of both. Having a vote with options, I guess that's. Yeah, I guess last time when we did the vote for the cooldowns, we didn't provide any options. It wasn't RFC. It was meant to just gauge the community's willingness to have us even pursue something like that. It's like if we have options, that does mean that we need to spend time, analyzing and designing and coming up with what we think are good solutions. And again, that's a matter of bandwidth and time. So rather than spend time doing that in advance, we wanted to make sure that first the community was even open to the idea. Otherwise, it's kind of a waste of our time, right? So, we could have been a little bit better at communicating our stances, I think, before that vote happened. Which, so maybe since then, some of the things that we've discussed have changed people's minds. And if we do want, if the community really does support us pursuing that further and coming up with some options. I think what we'd recommend is go to the talk site and get a lot of support for that specific thing, and then we could come up with an RFC. Maybe we could come up with some loose options that wouldn't take too long to do, and then if there's enough support for those, then we'd have like an actual governance vote that would be binding, that would either be like a yes no on a specific option, or provide multiple options, or a nothing change option kind of thing. And yeah, Bolin, I think you might have had a few other things you wanted to add, but maybe I covered it all.
You covered like 98% of it, so I'm just going to add a little bit, but especially highlighting the last part that you mentioned, because I do think that was something that led to some confusion with the RFC. Was it even like, let's say we did it again, right? We have some loose options. We aren't trying to get to a point where it's okay. Y'all said you were open to this option. So we've made that option into these two options, and you have to pick one of those. Like our goal was always to have an option presented with a choice of yes or no to that option. So I think that was some confusion around that RFC also was, well, if we say yes, we're open to it, then we're not going to have a chance to say no. We're going to have to pick an option that's presented. And that was definitely not our intent, and wouldn't be our intent. So even if it's something where, some loose options are presented and you say, yeah, I could be open to that, being open to it does not mean that you will have to do it. You would still have that option to turn it down, say no. But to Hubert's point, the last RFC was that the majority of people were not interested in pursuing those options. Opinions change, stances change. That's absolutely accurate. But if it's something that people are starting to want to see more action on, then yeah, bring it to us. Post it on the talk site, get support for it. But we need to see that has changed. Otherwise, it's just us presenting the same thing until we get a different vote, and that's not what we're trying to do either. So very open to it. Just get support behind it. Show us that there's support behind it, and we're more than open to it. And I do want to add also, just because it's been a topic, that also applies to the governance system itself. That is something that we've also been talking about a little bit internally as well. We mentioned it a few weeks ago. We're still talking about it internally as well. But if there's changes that you want to see made to the governance system, to the weight that certain things get, or, other changes on that system, that's the purpose of the governance system, is that it's able to also have changes to itself. So same thing. If there's a change that you have in mind or a structure that you think would be beneficial, make a post about it, use Discord, use the talk site. It's a lot easier to get feedback on what people want to see and then turn that into a proposal than us just throw noodles at the wall and see what sticks. So I would add that into that as well. All right, let's see. Actually, sorry. I'm going to go slightly out of order because this one's related. Thoughts on, in terms of summoning, sorry, I just saw that comment. Is that how the Threads logo was created? Probably. So, in terms of summoning, thoughts on two different ideas. I'm going to give them one at a time. The first one is introducing a failed option for summoning, where there's actually a chance to get nothing from summoning and fail to bring a hero back from the inner grove. The suggested chance is 0.42069%. But Hubert, thoughts on having a failed option for summoning?
Yeah, I'd be interested to see, what kind of math went into that percentage there. It's a pretty fancy number. Yeah, I think for a failed option for summoning, I'm not really inclined to an idea like that. I mean, it certainly could be done, but with heroes besides Gen Zeros, they have a limited number of summons, so I think that would be, depending on how we did it, it would either be like very impactful and kind of painful for the user, or like just kind of a joke thing where you just get a critical fail and feel bad. So it's not something that I think I support, but it's an interesting idea.
And we've summoned the fox.
Hey guys, sorry to pop in halfway through the AMA.
No, you're fine. Welcome.
But yeah, here I am.
Let's see, Hubert, the second part of that question was a hero recycling option where players burn like a minimum number of heroes and they can get like a loot box of sorts, a random reward. But the more heroes that they burn in that go, the better their odds on better rewards are. Thoughts there?
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. We've talked about loot boxes a bit internally. I think as far as something like that we would like that could be an option that we do. I don't want to say that we wouldn't do that, but I also don't think that if we did, it would be something that we do like right away. Again, it comes kind of down to resources, and I think some of the other burn mechanics that we've been discussing probably have a more immediate impact if we were to go with those versus something like a loot box kind of thing. So yeah, I'll definitely remember that idea. I do think it's an interesting one. So perhaps someday in the future we'll look at that again.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Let's see. So there is a question that's kind of a Hubert Beetle crossover, so I'm going to save that one for when we have them both here to weigh in on it. But there is another one. What Web3 game projects are the team most inspired by? Whoever unmutes first gets to go first.
Okay.
fuck.
Well, I mean, we were at the start. There was a lot of really cool projects out in the space, but not a ton of games yet. So one thing that inspired me was CryptoKitties. I thought it was really cool how they did the creation of new kitties and how like the genes mixed and all that. And it formed some of the basis for how we like went about doing our summoning. Ours has a lot more genes involved, but it's a similar concept. And then so that was one for sure, and it was sort of like one of the OG crypto games that I can think of in general, because like it actually kind of broke the Ethereum chain because it used up so much gas. And for a while it made gas really, really expensive. And I just remember when that was happening and I was just like, wow, this is crazy. So that's one for sure. And then Axes is another really big one that was really cool to see, like NFTs being able to do things like fighting and things like that. So that was definitely one for me as well. There was another one that was interesting, and I didn't ever actually try it a lot, but I did spend some time looking at it, and I think it was My Crypto Heroes, is the name of it. I think it's a Japanese project that was kind of big there, and that was one that sort of inspired me as well. So yep, those are my three.
Let's see. So I guess I'll jump in here. My answer is kind of more of a one where I guess I'm inspired to make, work on DFK and try to make it the best that I can. I haven't really been spending much time looking at other projects per se. But as game director, my desire is to make something that is fun and innovative in this Web3 space, and I think what we've been doing has been very much that. We're doing, I think, a lot more than what other projects do in terms of like the number of smart contracts, the way we interact with things, the way we do, cross-chain content and whatnot. I think we're always kind of pushing boundaries, and for me, that's what's inspiring is to push our own boundaries. So I honestly don't really look at other projects. I really haven't looked at any other than just what I've been told. So kind of a non-answer, but that's kind of where I stand on that.
I can jump in here. I've got a couple that I've been impressed with. They're more on the Ethereum side of things, and I guess that leads to like Polygon as well. But the first of those is Aavegotchi. They basically pioneered the Diamond standard, which I'm very impressed with, and we've started using more and more in our own smart contract repos. And they've also got some cool kind of like the ability for NFTs to hold other NFTs, and I think they've turned those into kind of ERC standards as well. So they're constantly pumping out new ERCs and new ways to equip different things or add utility to NFTs. The other one would be Dark Forest. They're I guess less of a traditional type of game, but they basically use zero knowledge technology to hide things on chain, and so you're kind of like exploring this forest, and you don't really know kind of what's around the corner. and they also use the diamond pattern as well. So I was kind of impressed from a technical sense from those two, and they're kind of like I guess more plugged into the Ethereum ecosystem. But I would be curious to kind of dig in a little more to the ZK side of things that Dark Forest is using, because there's some interesting stuff there.
I've got a dumb answer. As a dumb, I feel like the ecosystem that we're building is very deep and entangled in a way that other Web3 games, really, they're either not pursuing or they are, but they're not anywhere close yet. I mean, we're gamers before all this and inspired by stuff like Final Fantasy, Ogre Battle, Ultima, Diablo, stuff like that. We want to bring all those really good feelings into the Web3 space, and that's what gets me excited.
Nerds first. But yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, I'm kind of on the same page of Hubert. Of I just don't follow as many other games, to be honest. There's we're building a very different style from really anything else I've seen, and so I don't follow a whole lot of them. That said, I have obviously heard a lot about Afghachi and what they're working on, which sounds pretty cool as well. So let's see. Actually, we have Frisky Fox. Frisky Fox. Any news / thoughts on Duel Season 5? I know you spoke about it last week. Any updates?
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
I think so. Yeah, it's coming along. We've been sort of like zeroing in on exactly how we want the mechanics to work for this new feature. There's just a lot of little nuances that we've spent hours kind of talking about internally. We spent some time yesterday on that. Wait, I think it was yesterday. I don't know. And so that is really something that I'm really excited for, honestly. Like I'm just about to the point where I can start on some of the front end things for that, because I'm trying to do both a little bit of the front end and the back end for this one, so we can progress it faster. But time will tell if that's actually faster, because I'm not near as good as Beetle Dude typical. But that is coming along. I kind of feel like last week we kind of spoiled the actual big feature a little bit, so most people probably have a good idea of what it is, or at least an idea of how it might work. But I think there's going to be some really cool surprises from a lot of it on how exactly it will actually function in the game. Because trying to balance it within this world of like crypto and all of the nuances that come with that is interesting in a way that other games don't have to really think about. But it also gives rise to some really cool ways to balance it and have like the mechanics interplay with it. So I know it's all kind of big, but I'll just say I'm more excited about this than I've been about things in a while. So it's just really fun to build, and I'm really excited to see how it will play out amongst the players once it launches. So that's what I'll say for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. I think we have talked about this before, but it's been a little bit. Hubert, thoughts on future mining quests as token mining starts to phase out over time?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so right, as these tokens are being unlocked, the crystal and jade tokens, yeah, the token mining quest is going to eventually become obsolete once all unlocking is complete. So that leaves only gold mining at the moment. So as far as like plans for the future with that, we do have plans to have ore mining be a thing. We're trying to have that be timed closer to once crafting is underway. So it is a little bit of a ways out, but there may be time we may release it a little early and have some other uses for those ores in advance of that. But a little bit of time will tell. But that's kind of the general idea there, is that basically token mining would be replaced with ore mining, and that would provide materials for crafting weapons and armor and accessories and whatnot.
Awesome, awesome. Let's see. Any plans to allow lower level heroes to catch up with higher level heroes in the future?
I mean, I guess at the moment there is kind of, the level cap due to the way the runes are set up. It does kind of provide people a chance right now to be able to catch up to like the level 20s. But I think if we had some mechanics to like very quickly speed level, I think, well, we do have one with the dark summoning, so you could dark summon with higher level heroes and get that new hero up quickly. But that's kind of a little bit of an aside. But one purpose with the way the experience system is set up and with everything requiring a good deal of experience is that it does create an ecosystem where higher level heroes can have more value. They're more effective. And so like if you wanted a higher level hero, you could just buy that off the market rather than summon a new hero, right? And so I mean, while we likely will have more features that do give more experience, I don't think we're going to have something that's like the only intent of this function is to like super power level, low level heroes to get them to the max level quickly. I mean, there will always be power levelers that will find the best way that they can do that, but I don't see us making a feature that's like very quickly bypasses all of the other functionality that we have in the game. So.
Thank you again. Any plans to group items sold in the market? Anybody's welcome to chime in here, but I will say that is a feature that we've talked about for the Bazaar potentially, not at launch, but as a possible future iteration. Anything anybody wants to add to that?
Yeah, creating bundles of sorts that like you could sell is the thing that, I mean, from a technical standpoint, it's possible to create something like that. The question comes in like, how do you create a good user experience for that? Because if it's just very open-ended, you can make any kind of a bundle you want. Then how do you create like some of the filters and things you need? How do you let the right individuals that are trying to find that actually find it? Because the more like random things you have in a bundle, the trickier it is to stick that into a category, I guess. You could make some kind of a experience that's kind of more like Craigslist or something, where it's like, here's some random listings of just random things. But yeah, it's sort of an edge case. We're hoping that the bazaar just makes it a lot easier for players to list and to buy, and even to place like offers, basically, for things. Like say, I want some eggs, and I would be willing to pay, X amount of jewel for those eggs, up to 100 quantity or something. Then stick that out there, and other people be like, "Hey, this guy wants eggs. I got eggs. I'm gonna, I'm gonna add that, and we'll make a deal." So I'm hoping that with the liquidity that will capture, it'll make it a much better experience for individuals to get what they want, and for other individuals to sell what they want without having to really worry about things like impermanent loss. It's possible that we do add something in the future where you can create your own bundles. It's even I would say like very likely that we create sort of like things, sort of like a new player pack or something to help to onboard players, so that they can basically get a bunch of things that they need all at once. Like they might get some like jewels and power tokens, some stuff that you might need for like summoning, like tiers, things like that. You see a lot of other games that create like little packs bundles, so we have kind of talked about that as well. The question, of course, is how do we source those? When we basically create something that would basically buy them off the market at whatever the current price is, or is there other ways we can approach that as well? So yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at right now.
Awesome. Thank you for expanding on that. Let's see. Where'd we go? I guess Hubert, any thoughts on if there would be additional utility for like pet appearances, so ultra odd versus regular.
Could you say that question again? I was super distracted by the most recent stuff.
Oh, you're fine. Any thoughts on pet appearance utility? So, we've got the ultra odd variants, the odd variants, and then the normal variants. Any thoughts on that?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I guess the like what kind of utility, I guess. I mean, we could potentially identify pets that are flying versus not, versus having some sort of elemental property, I suppose. But I guess we haven't been designing with that in mind up until this point. So if we did, it wouldn't necessarily be like the most balanced thing where we like, oh, we want this many number of flying pets and this many number of that type of pets. So it might at this point with the way we've designed it be difficult to do that in a very, I guess, elegant way. So I don't think we'll be doing anything like that, at least in the short term. But yeah, maybe down the line again. I know a lot of maybes. It's just one of those things where to do that and then actually implement it and whatnot would require a good chunk of work. And I think our other priorities are higher than doing something like that.
I got another question for you, so don't go anywhere. For the eventual PvE system, will the intent be to feature item drop odds ranging from a common level all the way up to super unique, like 1 per 800,000 mobs?
Yeah, so we do plan to have there being, common versus rare and ultra rare drops on things with PvP and PvE. I think for unique weapons, I mean, yeah, we could do something where it's like 1 in a million or something like that. You have a chance, and we could also set up things to be like truly unique, where once it's been dropped once, it will never be dropped again. And we do have kind of loose plans for things of that nature, but we haven't like put anything to paper at this point. But I think, yeah, we definitely can. It wouldn't be something where like all PvP or all PvE has these chances. It would likely be more compartmentalized into like specific things, like a specific dungeon might have an ultra rare item that can be acquired by X number of times, and then that's it, something like that. But yeah, I guess in general, I do think something like that is a possibility and something we would be looking at.
Awesome. Any thoughts on Moksha rune drop rates?
I think new features may have higher drop rates than what the current ones do. Increasing the current ones, I don't think will happen right away, if ever, maybe. But we may include other ways to get them with just future content, I guess. So, yeah.
Very nice. Let's see. That one's a Beetle Dude question. By question, I mean task. We all know Beetle Dude doesn't get questions; he only gets tasks. So thoughts on here we go. A lot's been discussed about PvP. Aside from the gameplay aspect on the rewards side, any thoughts on what to expect there? The question mentions Crystal, Jade, and Jewel, all of which could be possible, but I also think focusing on the power token side of that alone might be a little less than what we have planned.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I kind of missed the first like sentence of that question. I keep getting distracted by other messages. I'm sorry.
You're
Could you repeat
fine.
that?
Yeah, so like on the reward side of PvP, I guess what's our kind of outlook there in terms of power tokens versus other rewards versus all of the above? Obviously speculative at this point, but what are your thoughts?
Okay, yeah, thanks for repeating that. The I do think we will have potential for some power token or jewel rewards as things from tournaments or other kind of limited features. I think also in addition to that we could have equipment drops and other kind of rarer resources as well. Could come from that, like Moksha runes or other runes. Once we raise the level cap, the next one could be, kind of more exclusive to PvP and PvE content. So those are also potential things. And yeah, as we get to this point, we're getting very close to where equipment is going to start being a thing. And once we get to crafting, then there's all the crafting ingredients and whatnot. And some recipes could require some unique ingredients that you can only get from PvP or from other kind of limited content. So I think the possibilities are pretty basically endless. I mean, of course we have we don't want to just expand to infinity, but I think there's a lot. I think you should be excited for it. We're not all the way there yet, but yeah, we want it PvP and PvE to be kind of the main thing that people are coming to do, and then having profession quests and whatnot being the more passive activities that you're doing, and supporting the ecosystem by providing the ingredients that people need to be able to like do combat and effectively with potions and whatnot, or with equipment. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you much. Let's see. So, general question for the long-term view of PvE. Would PvE potentially have a story mode and go over DFK lore? Could be like with each hero type having their own background, or more of like a dungeon crawler style?
I was thinking. So yeah, I think as far as like story content goes, and having, the majority of our content is going to be, at least initially, more focused around gameplay, and there will be kind of story attached to what you're doing, but it's more about doing dungeon crawls, going and hunting things, and getting to a point where there's, I guess, more story attached to yourself or your heroes. That would be something we'd maybe do once we kind of get a lot of our other systems refined and in place. So I don't know if that really answered the question all the way, but
All good. Appreciate the insight. Yeah. I mean,
I sort of think there'd be sort of like a RPG-ish element where you kind of work up towards harder and harder things. Not not sure how that will actually come into fruition, but sort of like a progression story of sorts.
right, yeah, the world and the growth of the world is kind of the main overarching story as players learn more and more about what's going on in the world. They get introduced to more of like the good and evil elements within it as we expand like the map, and do just get more and more content out there. So I guess for players now, that the story is the evolution of DFK and everything that goes on. And yeah, I think just in general story content, that there's a lot of work that goes into that, and I think we need to get to a point where we have a lot of systems up and running and chugging along, people participating, before we can start to divert resources into like heavy main story content type of stuff.
awesome. Yeah. A lot coming in the future for sure. Let's see. Thoughts on a name change service for in-game names, potentially a long cooldown or a fee, but general thoughts on that. Magnus, I know you've got some considerations there.
Sorry. Also, was getting distracted by things.
Second best dad, stop DMing everybody. In-game name changes.
I will not stop.
Yeah. So the like underlying kind of framework for that has been available in the contracts for a while. I think we just need to set aside some time on the timeline to implement that. But that there are kind of like with everything you open up, there is the flip side to that of people. It's very hard to do like input validation on chain, and so it costs a lot of gas, and so it's difficult to prevent like people putting in like slightly different characters that might appear to be like someone from the team or some other community member, and so we've got to really make sure nobody's impersonating some other account or things like that. So it's kind of a challenge we've been looking at to make sure we're not using a ton of gas to do any kind of validation, and we need to check across both chains now since we're on DFK chain and Clayton. So even though it doesn't sound that complex, there are a lot of kind of edge cases we've been evaluating, but definitely seems feasible. It's just we want to make sure we're doing that in a way that we're not opening up players to get scammed or anything like that.
Thank you. All right, so probably going to be the last question for this week, and then we can snag the rest next week. So, would Gen Zero heroes ever have utility in summoning things other than just new heroes? So, I asked for a little clarification on this. So, a little bit of background. There were two thoughts there. One was that potentially in raids, Gen Zeros could help summon certain or special bosses. And the other is just if we had any other ideas or plans to have other things than heroes come out of the portal.
Yeah, I think the main draw with Gen Zeros was the infinite summon thing. I suppose we could consider that, but it is, making content for, less than 3,000. We have about 3,000 Gen Zeros at the moment, I think. And eventually it'll be about 4,000 by the end. So I guess if we did make very exclusive content like that, I guess it's a question of like, is that the right way for us to divert our resources? Because I think the number of Gen Zero holders versus just normal hero holders is going to be a pretty big difference. So it'd be something we'd have to consider and think about if that's a thing. It could be just that Gen Zeros get a bonus over non-Gen Zeros for something, so it's not so exclusive. But in general, that the main thrust that we had for them was to make them like the summoning, I guess gods of the game. I don't know what word to use, but they are the infinite summoners. So yeah, I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that.
Awesome. No, I think that was a really good point about balancing, utility for Gen Zeros without building features that are exclusive to a too small part of the population. So it's always balancing there. So with that, we are going to go.
I want to say some things I should have said earlier, but yeah, I want to echo everything that Hubert said. Also share some thoughts of sort of the initial conception of Gen Zeros. The idea was that they wouldn't necessarily be the best heroes in the game. In fact, I think everyone kind of knows, like, there's advanced classes, elite, transcendent. There's heroes that will be harder to get in many ways. So that's for sure sort of the approach we took there. Like they have a very awesome ability that no other heroes can have. Um, but they aren't the end all be all of like this is the pinnacle of heroes. Same thing with other heroes. Like if you have a Dread Knight, like cool, but you can't summon a lot with it. So there's pros and cons to each ones that are out there. It sort of like depends on what you want to do, what your intents are with that hero, what you want to get out of it. So that's my thoughts.
Appreciate that, Vox. Thank you for the add-on. I definitely agree with that as well. So we are actually going to start closing this one up, and then there are some rollover questions for next week. As always, if we didn't get to your question, don't worry, we'll be back next week. Same bat time, same bat place, same bat channel. That might be copyrighted. Forget I said that. Anyway, so I did want to give a moment for anybody that wants to give any final thoughts. As always, thank you everybody who's up here. Thank you for everybody who's in the audience. Thank you to everybody who's submitting questions for us as well. We could not do these without questions, so thank you for bringing them to us. We're always here to answer. Don't ape into broken mechanics, and super excited about the Swipeflux partnership. Any last comments from anybody?
I'm excited we announced the Cyclops. I must have missed that because I only entered halfway, but yeah, I'm super excited about all of the onboarding things that are going on right now. We've got so many things that are really targeted towards acquiring new players that are not native already to crypto. Some of the more traditional gamer type players and just regular users. Because as we start to get more and more exposure, which we will, there's going to be a great need to just say like, let's lower the barriers for entry for just regular people. And that, in my mind, is going to be one of the biggest things that will happen for adoption for DFK in particular, but also just in general, like for things in the crypto world. I think that games have a very strong use case for onboarding people. You see it in every generation of things. Like I got interested in computer programming because of games. I started playing games. Oh, it's fun. And then I would like learn more and more about it. And they'd be like, hey, I wanna like write scripts that can do things with these games. And then it's like, oh, I actually want to create my own games. And so it just grows from there. That's kind of how it will be with crypto for a lot of people too. They'll get into it because of the games. They'll stay because of other things as well. So yep, that's it for me. Super excited, super bullish about the onboarding things. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, sorry, I think you did miss the Swipeflux part, but hey, now you know. Awesome. Well, and if there are no other closing comments from anybody, I'm going to nominate Second Best Dad to bullish us because he never joins us on stage.
Sorry, I wasn't listening. What do you want? Hubert was messaging me. No. Yeah, I'm not a word guy, so bullish.
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 Second Best
Bullish.
Dad, an image guy, no words.